I've been lurking on the dark web for a while now, just curious about what's out there beyond the surface web. I never expected to stumble upon something so chilling and horrifying that it would haunt my dreams. It all started innocently enough. I was browsing through various forums and stumbled upon a link that promised access to a hidden website, one that supposedly delved into the darkest corners of human existence. Intrigued and admittedly a bit foolish, I clicked on it. The website was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was simple, almost bare bones, with just a single page displaying a live video feed. At first, it seemed like nothing was happening, just a dimly lit room with concrete walls. But then, I noticed movement in the shadows. There were figures, hunched over in the darkness, their faces obscured by masks. They were performing some sort of ritual, chanting in a language I couldn't understand. My heart began to race as I watched, feeling a sense of unease creeping over me. Suddenly, the camera zoomed in on one of the figures, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. The person was holding something small and writhing. I couldn't make out what it was at first, but then it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was a baby. My stomach churned as I watched in horror as the figure began to do unspeakable things to the infant. I won't go into detail, but suffice it to say, it was the most vile and disgusting thing I've ever witnessed. I wanted to look away, to close the browser and pretend like I never saw anything. But I couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen. It was like I was frozen in place, forced to witness this horrific display. Eventually, the ritual ended, and the figures disappeared into the darkness. I sat there in shock for what felt like hours, trying to process what I had just witnessed. Was it real, or just some sick joke? I don't know, and quite frankly, I don't want to find out. I've since deleted my Tor browser and vowed never to return. But the memory of that horrifying encounter still lingers in the back of my mind. A constant reminder of the true darkness that lurks beneath the surface of the internet. So, consider this a warning to anyone curious about the dark web. Sometimes, ignorance really is bliss. Stay safe out there, everyone. And for the love of God, stay away from the dark web. I've got a bone-chilling tale from the dark web that I just had to share. I know, it sounds cliche, but trust me, what happened to me was straight out of a nightmare. It started innocently enough, just me, casually browsing through one of those sketchy forums you find in the depths of the dark web. The thread I stumbled upon was like something out of a nightmare, filled with cryptic messages hinting at unspeakable horrors. But instead of heeding the warnings, I dove deeper. After some digging, I found a link promising access to a live stream unlike anything I'd ever seen. The site was sketchy as hell, with a chat box full of gibberish usernames. But when the stream finally loaded, that's when the real nightmare began. Picture this: a dimly lit room with only a single chair in the center. And sitting on that chair was a person, or at least something that used to be a person. Their face was hidden behind a grotesque mask made of what looked like human skin patches. The room echoed with muffled cries as the camera angle kept shifting, never giving a clear view of the surroundings. And the chat box. As I watched in horror, the chat box erupted with messages, each one more cryptic and disturbing than the last. People were placing bets, making twisted jokes, and even discussing the price of what they called tickets to this macabre spectacle. It was like a digital coliseum, where the audience reveled in the suffering of the helpless victim. I couldn't tear my eyes away, trapped in a sick mix of fascination and dread. Every part of me screamed to close the browser, to forget what I'd seen. But morbid curiosity held me there, unable to look away from the horror unfolding before me. And then, just like that, the stream abruptly ended, leaving me in darkness, trying to process what I'd witnessed. Was it real? Or just some sick game played out in the shadows of the internet? I'll never know for sure, but one thing's certain. I won't be venturing into the dark web again. Consider this a warning, folks. The dark web isn't just a playground for criminals. It's a realm where reality and nightmare blur. And once you've seen the horrors within, there's no going back. Stay safe out there. And remember, some things are better left unseen. I need to get this off my chest. Something seriously messed up happened to me recently, and I can't shake the feeling of dread it's left me with. So, like many of you, I've always been curious about the dark web. You hear all these stories about it being this hidden underbelly of the internet, where all sorts of shady stuff goes down. Well, against my better judgment, I decided to take the plunge and explore it for myself. I downloaded Tor, did all the necessary precautions to protect my identity, and started browsing. At first, it was all pretty tame stuff. Illegal drugs, counterfeit money, and that kind of thing. But then, I stumbled upon this forum that seemed different from the rest. It was called the Black Veil, and it claimed to be a place where you could find anything your heart desired for the right price. I was intrigued, so I started digging deeper. That's when things started to get weird. I found posts offering services that I didn't even know existed. Things like human experimentation, occult rituals, and even snuff films. I was horrified, but I couldn't tear myself away. Then, I came across a thread titled, "The Ritual of the Whispering Shadows." The post described a ritual that supposedly allowed you to communicate with the dead. Being the skeptic that I am, I figured it was all just a bunch of BS. But there was a part of me that was curious, that wanted to know if there was any truth to it. Against my better judgment, I decided to try it out. I followed the instructions in the post to a T, setting up candles in a circle and reciting the incantation. At first, nothing happened, but then I heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible at first, but growing louder and louder until it felt like it was right next to my ear. I couldn't make out what it was saying at first, but then the words became clear. It was speaking in a language I didn't understand, but the tone was unmistakable. It was angry, full of rage. I tried to end the ritual, but the whispers only grew louder, filling the room until I thought my head would explode. And then, suddenly, it stopped. The room was silent once again, but the sense of dread lingered. I stumbled out of my chair, shaking and sweating, and shut down my computer. I haven't been able to sleep properly since that night. Every time I close my eyes, I hear the whispers again, echoing in the darkness. I don't know what I unleashed, but I know one thing for sure. I won't be venturing into the dark web again. Hey everyone, I've been lurking on the dark web for a while now, and I stumbled upon something so messed up that I can't keep it to myself any longer. It all started when I found this hidden forum called the Abyss Market. It claimed to be a place where you could buy and sell anything. And I mean anything. At first it seemed like your typical black market stuff, drugs, weapons, stolen goods. But then I noticed something strange. There were auctions being held for items that weren't material at all. Curiosity got the better of me, so I decided to investigate further. That's when I found it. The auction of lost souls. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. People were bidding on the souls of others, their essence, their very being. I thought it was just some sick joke at first, but the bids were serious, reaching into the thousands of dollars. I was horrified, but I couldn't look away. I watched as one poor soul after another was sold to the highest bidder, their fate sealed with a few clicks of a mouse. And then I saw it, a listing for my own soul. I don't know how they got it or why they were selling it, but there it was, my name and a starting bid that made my blood run cold. I felt like I was in some kind of twisted nightmare, but I couldn't deny the sick fascination that kept me glued to the screen. I watched as the bids climbed higher and higher, feeling a sense of helplessness wash over me. I wanted to scream to tear myself away from the computer, but I was paralyzed by fear. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the auction ended. My soul had been sold to the highest bidder, and there was nothing I could do about it. I shut down my computer and sat in the darkness, feeling empty and numb. I don't know what's going to happen to me now that my soul no longer belongs to me. All I know is that I'll never be the same again. The dark web may be a place of hidden wonders, but it's also a place of unspeakable horrors, and I fear that I've only scratched the surface.